Good morning, Councillor Paul Heinrich, chairing the meeting this morning. And for those who haven't attended previously, members who make up the committee and will be voting on the applications before us today are sitting in the middle, officers, and to my right, local members to my right, and I was also left. Could I ask officers to introduce themselves, please? Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Lyon. I'm a development manager.
Morning, everyone. I'm Joseph Barrow, Senior Planning Officer.
Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services.
Russell Williams, Assistant Director for Planning at the Council.
Fiona Croxton, Solicitor to the Council.
Thank you. Usual housekeeping reminders. Please put your mobile phones to off or silent. No fire alarms are planned, so if the alarm does go off, leave the building via the fire exits, please. Do not use the lift and assembly points like the car park and the area around the flagpole, the front of the building. If we're still going at 11, we may take a coffee break. I hope that it won't be the case today. I remind members of the public not to speak to members of the committee during the meeting or during any break. And I don't expect to assess whether we need a lunch break. Apologies, please, Laura.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Brown. And if I may, with the following item, Chairman, Councillor Luke Patterson is present as a substitute for Councillor Brown.
Thank you. We have two sets of minutes from the meeting of the 25th of January and the additional meeting from the 8th of February. I will take it that you have read those through. Are there any amendments anybody wishes to raise? If not, are you content that both sets of minutes are correct? Thank you. Item 5, items of urgent business. It's not technically urgent business, but just to remind you that the Pudding Norton item on the agenda has been withdrawn by the applicant and will therefore not be considered at this time. Therefore, the order of business is one application at Catfield. Before we get to that, could I ask a declaration of interest? Okay, let's move straight on to the application then. Joe, present, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, as you will have seen, this is an application at the former Milestones Hospital site in Catfield. It is for conversion of that site with some minor extensions and alterations as well to 21 dwelling houses with alternative renovation works throughout. So the key elements of the proposal are the creation of 21 residential units, and that's 12 of them 1 bed, 9 of them are 2 bed. There'll be landscaping across the site to be secured by a condition, including the provision of the parking layout, which has acceptable layout for refuse collection vehicles as well. Ecological enhancements are proposed across the site as reviewed by the council's ecologist, and there are financial contributions towards the GRAM strategy, open space provision and local infrastructure outlined in the report and to be secured via Section 106 legal agreement. Looking at the site in its broader context, you'll see it's just towards the north edge of the village of Catfield, adjacent to some of the industrial areas to the north and east, and the more residential areas to the south there as well. Looking at the site in more detail, you'll notice residential properties to the south and north immediately, and open countryside to the west, and then you have the more industrial areas to the east. The site is split into 2 main buildings. That's Magnolia House connected to Hamilton House at the north and Hamilton Mews in the southwest corner. So the key features of the overall site layout are the 32 spaces as mentioned, and that includes 4 accessible spaces and 6 electric vehicle spaces. The green space is retained to the front of Hamilton Mews, as well as the provision of a child's play area, and you'll notice soakaway provision as well underneath those access drives. So the existing elevations here for Magnolia House and Hamilton House, which is the larger building to the north. And the proposed elevations there as well. You'll note that minimal changes are proposed, really mostly just fenestration alterations, and largely trying to retain the character of a building which sort of contributes positively to the site. The existing floor plans for that building there, again, Hamilton House, Magnolia House. And moving in towards the proposed floor plans. At ground floor level, you'll notice the provision of 6 2-bed units and 3 1-bed units. And in the southwest corner, we have the bin store and a bike rack for 22 bicycles. At first floor, 1 1-bed unit and 2 2-bed units. Again, only the northeast corner, with a further 2-bed unit at the second floor level in that northeast building. Here's some photos from within the site for you as well. So these are from the front elevations, sort of standing where the access drive and car parking would be. And then turning left in the site there to look at the more single-story elements of that building. Moving on to Hamilton Mews, again, we're looking at the existing elevations here. And then to the proposed elevations. Again, a core value of this is trying to keep it largely similar to the existing and minimal alterations, but you will notice the 2 rear extensions to the southern and northernmost flats, just providing additional living area to those 2 units. All 4 units at ground floor level will benefit from private rear gardens on this building as well. The existing floor plans for you. And the proposed floor plans, again, you'll notice the single-story extensions to the rear. Just demonstrating some photos of the site for you there as well. And there's the Hamilton Mews building sort of split into 2 over those last 2 slides. So the key issues that are up for debate by yourselves members are the principle of the conversion of the building and the loss of the hospital facility. The affordable housing provision, you'll note from the report that is 0 in this case, but that is supported by a viability assessment. The design inclusive of those items that you'll see listed there and amenity impacts, flood risk and drainage, highway safety and transport sustainability, ecology and biodiversity, any heritage impacts, sustainable construction and any planning obligations and financial contributions made as part of the scheme. The recommendation put to you today, members, is approval of the application subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement and the imposition of conditions as outlined in the officer report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move to speakers, beginning with the Parish Council speaker. Janet, if you microphone.
Please excuse me, Chairman, my voice is quite croaky this morning.
That's no problem.
Oops. Mr. Chairman and members of the Development Committee, my name is Janet Briscoe and I am here as a representative of Catfield Parish Council, as the Chair and the Vice Chair are unable to attend due to prior commitments which couldn't be changed at short notice. Catfield is a small village and the proposed development at the former Milestones Hospital is the largest proposed development in the village for many years. It is therefore incumbent on the Parish Council to give the proposals our full consideration. Catfield is very fortunate to have district councillors Taylor and Bayes as our representatives. They are extremely supportive to the Parish Council and have been proactive in trying to engender better communication between the district council and the community it serves. With regard to the Milestones application, the Parish Council has submitted objections to the proposal. However, last October, in the context of whether the application should come before this committee, the Parish Council asked 5 questions which were submitted to the Planning Department on our behalf by Councillor Taylor on November the 2nd, 2023. No response was received to those questions, despite repeated requests from Councillor Taylor. The Parish Council discovered that the application was coming before this committee last Thursday after I checked the website. There has still been no response to the questions posed, and indeed it is reasonable to conclude that no answers would have been forthcoming if the matter had not been pursued by Councillor Taylor on the following day. Answers to those questions were not received until late on Friday afternoon last week. Parish Council is of the view that it has been prejudiced by the very late response to these questions. There has been no time to analyse the answers and provide a comprehensive response before this meeting, as the Parish Council meeting only took place last night. I understand that representations are going to be put forward by Councillors Taylor and Bayes, and I have had sight of those representations. And the Parish Council fully supports the representations that will be put forward by our district councillors. To reiterate, there's been a complete breakdown of communication between our councillors and the North Norfolk District Council officers. There was a lack of notice given to our councillors ahead of the application being called to committee. The questions put to the planning officer were completely ignored despite chasing, and it is totally incomprehensible to the parish council why the planning officer would bring the application before this committee before responding to the questions posed by the parish council. The parish council therefore asks that this matter is deferred until a future meeting, so that the parish council has the opportunity to provide a detailed response to the committee. Parish Council will also support any follow-up
I'm
action.
afraid I'll have to stop you at that point.
Thank you.
3 minutes. Thank you. Right, we have no objecting speaker. I have one supporting speaker. Ben Edwards, if you'd come to the microphone at the end of this bench, please. Again, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to check, we weren't aware that the parish council hadn't been given comments and opportunity to respond. So I'm not really sure how that sort of fits into today's agenda.
It's perfectly normal that a parish finds out that an application is coming before the committee when the agenda is published, because until the agenda is published, there's been no decision made as to which applications in the pipeline will be brought forward.
Fine.
So it's been no different from any other application. Internal matters I will not comment on.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, committee. My name is Ben Edwards. I'm one of the architects who's worked on the milestone scheme. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to speak with you today. Before I get into the sort of matters, there actually isn't a representative from Lion Properties here today. The named applicant, Mr. Richard Jones, unfortunately passed away on Monday. His daughter, Catherine, the other director, understandably couldn't be here. She's asked me to send her apologies to confirm, should the committee be minded to support the development, she has every intention of implementing it, and this is important to her. Milestones until February 2021 was a privately operated company by Ara Projects Limited. Following a failed safety inspection by the Care Quality Commission, their NHS contract was withdrawn, and the company was soon after liquidated. One of the key objections during the consultation period was the loss of this community asset and the treatment of psychiatric patients. For the record, and this is on the planning file, during that sale, the agents, Sanderson Weatherall, received 37 expressions of interest, 11 of which of those were categorised as hospital operators. Following a period of due diligence, only 2 offers were received, both from residential developers, Lion Properties being the highest bid at 1.25 million. Other objections that have been stated today refer to highway safety and overdevelopment. Both of these items are addressed in the officer's report, but for clarity, we've worked with the highways team to provide additional details in terms of vehicle tracking to ensure safety and compliance. With regards to overdevelopment, the council have a specific policy, HO7, which sets the acceptable density whilst ensuring the government's requirement to efficiently use land is considered. Proposed 1 and 2 bedroom flats occupy a land area of only 1.4 hectares, which is well within this policy. While everyone in Norfolk understands the importance of nutrient neutrality, the applicant's site has been unused for over 3 years now. The design in front of you today reuses a brownfield site with minimal intervention, the only new footprint being 2 small rear extensions to Hamilton Mews, required to meet the minimum floor areas set by the council. Milestones, or Bleak House as it was previously known, was built in 1873. The site laid to formal gardens. The change of use from to a nursing home was approved in 1996 and the site developed and extended over the last 30 years. We believe this application meets the key policy tests and is supported by the LPA. It's for the committee to decide today if returning it to its historic residential use is acceptable. Thank you.
Right, we have two local members. You wish to start, councillor Taylor?
Yes, thank
Yep.
you, Mr. Chairman. And I will just start by saying I do take a little bit of objection to what you've just said to the supporting speaker. I think if it is the norm that us as local members are ignored for 4 months despite chasing emails, then we have some serious problems in our planning department. So, oh. One second, Mr. Chairman. I'm very sorry, my laptop has just switched off. I'm very sorry about that. There we go. There we go. So yes, I'd like to use my time today to outline some context for you all as my fellow North Norfolk councillors. I will not be speaking on the merits of this application today, as I refuse to be forced into a corner with very little notice and see my community of Catfield not represented. I'm here today to advocate for a deferral for reasons which I hope will become clear to you all in the next few minutes. I called this application to Development Committee back in October as there were concerns raised by my community of Catfield, and I wanted this application to be judged by a panel of my fellow councillors. As we always do, myself and Councillor Bayes consulted with our parish council to seek their opinion and views, and as a result, 5 questions were raised. I sent these questions through to the planning department on the 2nd of November last year. I followed up with a chasing email. I went to go see the officer in person, and 4 months later, we only had the response come through on Friday night after I took action. To my complete and utter shock, I was informed that this application was coming forward to committee via an email from Democratic Services last Thursday. At no point did the planning officer notify me this was coming forward. Since I have been led to understand through numerous meetings that we've had subsequently that there is no requirement for the planning officer to inform local members that an application is coming forward to committee. But we all deal with planning applications, we deal with them on a weekly basis, and with that consistent flow of communication from the officer, we know when an application is at the point where it is coming to committee. The situation in this case is that communication broke down. We had no notice, we had no foresight to give to our parish council, to the community that we represented, and to have the questions answered on Friday night when this application was being decided the following week, in my book, is completely unacceptable. I find this whole matter to be deeply, deeply concerning, and we cannot allow for our community of Catfield to go unrepresented. This saga does not reflect well on the council, and should this application be approved today, it would reflect in an even poorer light. A deferral is needed to ensure proper representation can be made, and as a result, I will refuse to speak on the merits until that time is given. I urge you all to vote for a deferral to give Catfield and ourselves the opportunity to make our proper representations.
Thank you, councillor Taylor. Councillor Bayes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I completely and wholeheartedly endorse the comments made by my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Taylor. It appears to the general public, particularly residents and the parish council of Catfield, that there is a disregard to those questions and concerns that are affected by any planning in the village. That any question appears irrelevant. The fact that our questions went unanswered for 4 months, despite numerous attempts to chase, and ended up here in committee without us having notice, is of serious concern as it broken the trust between the district and the parish. For us all as elected councillors, we would expect a high standard of service from any department or public sector that is paid for through our taxes. SLAs, service level agreements, should clearly indicate the service expected. In this case, waiting over 4 months for 5 questions to be answered does not reflect that high standard or level of service. It is deemed that this service is, if it is deemed that this service is poor and not acceptable and has impacted on the trust and placed on the process, there should be an expectation to ensure that this will be put right. And today is this opportunity. I understand that there is not a process to remove or take off an item from planning committee once it has been made public. But I urge every single councillor in the chamber to vote for a deferral of this application to ensure that myself, my fellow councillor and the community of Catfield are able to make a proper representation. This would only be for 2 weeks. I'm led to believe that there is another planning meeting scheduled. I will also not be commenting on the merits of the application. Like Matthew, I will not be forced to speak without proper notice and time needed to prepare. We cannot function our roles as local representatives if our communication breaks down. In this case, it undoubtedly has. The only viable option is to ensure that the voice of Catfield is heard, is to vote for a deferral today. I will not say anything further, but I hope that you all, as fellow councillors, will vote today to ensure that the high standards are met. Catfield does not deserve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr Williams to respond, please?
Thank you, Chair, and I will try and choose my words carefully here. So this application is before committee because it should be. Because as Councillor Taylor said, he asked for it to be called in some months ago. So it's here before you today, and you have a full 16-page-ish report before you. I don't disagree with the timeline that the various speakers set out. Councillor Taylor, on behalf of others, did pose some questions at the start of November, and we should have responded to those questions sooner than we did. I have apologised to both councillors for the poor service that they received. They did, as they say, get the answers to the questions late on Friday from me direct, and I have briefed Councillor Taylor as to my view that you have before you enough for you to take whatever position you wish today, be that refusal, approval, or deferral in that regard. The report does cover all relevant issues, including those set out within the questions around, which were around the health position, affordable housing, highways, and the like. Mr. Barrow showed a slide with the various issues that are set out within your report, and the parish council's position is set out on page 36 of the report. Just switching to the issue of notification of items that are on the agenda, the chair's observations are obviously pertinent. We do not have a system where we notify people in advance. Whether we should or not is another issue, but the normal position was followed. As you might imagine, I have discussed this at some length in the last few days with both my boss, the Director of Place and Climate Change, and the Council's Monitoring Officer, and we are all comfortable, although bluntly I would rather the questions had been answered earlier, that you have the information before you to take whichever route forward you might wish. Clearly any questions that might be pertinent to the application, Mr. Barrow and Mr. Lyon will answer, but I would also observe finally that I don't think either Mr. Lyon or me, or I would imagine you, wants to be in this position again, and we have made that quite clear internally.
Thank you. Right, we move to debate. I would say that if you wish to propose deferral, could we do that after further debate on the application? You may then deem it not appropriate, although you've heard impassioned speeches of the local members. My personal view of this is that their questions are answered anyway in the report. They may disagree, but it is over to you. Who wishes to begin? Yes, Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I looked at this application, it didn't seem to me to be complete. There seemed to be a lot of holes here, there and everywhere. For instance, if you look at the parish council's objections, there's 13 of them. 3 of them actually already wrote down charging points. They actually say there's no charging points. There are in fact 6, and I think there should be a lot more than that. And there seems to be, I'm not sure, Joe, if you could help me out, but has the issue with Natural England been sorted out? Because it seems, I'm not quite sure where it is on this at the moment. I don't know if you could help me out with that one. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Chair. Sorry. Regards Natural England, I think you may mean the nutrient neutrality issue. Yeah. The council was in receipt of emails, I believe it was as late last year, Jeff, if you wish to correct me if I'm wrong, confirming that discharges into Ludham sewage treatment works discharge outside of the nutrient neutrality catchment. And therefore, in terms of foul water drainage, it's no longer applicable in areas that do connect into that mains network.
Quickly on that, I actually assumed it was because it was already building with drainage already in. And you're not putting new drainage on, more pressures on existing sewers and stuff. So that's why I thought it was okay. Thank you.
You finished then, Sharon? Thank you. Councillor Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I would just like to thank the case officer for his work in this application. If I may go over 2 points here, the situation we appear to be in as a committee, and then the merits of the application. Firstly, I think it is deeply regrettable that we're in this situation. And I want to make it known that I'm certainly not unsympathetic to the situation of the local members. I think it's important that they have made that known. And it's quite clear that we just need to revise these protocols, and it's clear from the officer's statement that that will be undertaken, and that's rightly so. But moving on, as a member of this development committee, I've read through the report, I've seen the information in front of me, and I feel that I have enough information to therefore make a resolution. And it appears that it is in a sustainable location, it is sustainable development, in the sense that amenities are accessed by foot. That's really important. It allows amenities to survive and thrive. Catfield has some really good local facilities. It is classed as a sustainable area. So it's important that we have this development to reuse a building which otherwise would probably be abandoned, and that fits in within our policies. Obviously, it's regrettable that there is no viability for affordable homes, but that has gone through that process, and that is stated within the report. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to support this application. I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I agree with a lot of what Councillor Barley says, and my experience of the planning department is that it's well run and communications are usually good. But in all good departments, there are sometimes hiccups or missteps, and I think that this has happened here. I think that, yes, as councillors, we have enough before us to make a decision, but I'm very concerned about the lack of consultation with the local community. And in view of what the parish council representative has said and the local councillors, I would propose to defer this.
Sorry, Chairman, if I just might clarify, there is already a live proposal on the floor, which is for approval. You can't have two proposals at one time. So the proposal currently being discussed, debated and to be determined, unless withdrawn by Councillor Varley, is for approval. We can't consider a separate proposal until that has been addressed.
If I may then, Mr. Chairman, for a debate to take place, I'm happy to withdraw that recommendation at this moment, just to allow debate to take place. I think that's really important and transparent.
could I ask you to hold off as well while we? let
Yeah,
everybody have
yes,
to say?
I'm happy to do that. And Chairman, I think, you know, you said at the beginning that we should hold off. So I wouldn't have made a proposal until you'd given the signal that it was time for proposals, but I withdraw.
That's fine, councillor. If you're happy to do that, then, no, councillor Fitch-Tillett has already indicated she wishes to speak.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to send my apologies for that. Thank you.
It's not a problem, councillor. Okay, Angie?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's just one thing that's concerning me particularly, and that is the concern expressed by our environmental health officers. I think we've all been in a situation whereby people have moved into a specific property within our patches where they suddenly realise that, or in my case example, we've got an airfield. Now, environmental health have expressed potential disturbance from the facilities across the road in an industrial place where there could be noise and dust. And I just want to highlight that because that could cause problems for the local members in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday and councillor Toy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very disappointed by the lack of affordable housing. Is my understanding correct that the independent viability assessment uses the same numbers as used by the actual applicant? Or do they go off and find their own numbers?
I believe it does use the same numbers, yeah.
I would have some concerns then about the independent viability assessment. I don't think we can pass another application that has no affordable housing in it. I mean, it's against our what we're trying to achieve in our district.
Mr. Lyon.
Yeah, I mean, our independent financial advisor, they will use their own sort of knowledge and to interrogate the data. So they don't just accept on face value the information that's presented to them. They will sort of prod and probe to make sure that it does stand up to scrutiny. So it's not just blindly accepting, it is critically assessing the information that's come before them.
Yeah. Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, can I offer my condolences to the applicant's family? That's very sad, but I'm pleased to see that they're still going to go forward with that. So thank you. The affordable housing, obviously it's a question here from many. Are we able to put in any sort of clawback if things change in the section 106? I don't know if that's, I didn't see it in the conditions. So that's possibly something we could do there towards that. Yeah, I think we have enough to make a decision, but like others here, whether due process is taken to give opportunity to communities. So I'll sit on the fence at the moment before deciding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll just pass it over to Jeff for the uplift provision. I asked that when the report was, the agenda was published, and I think it's a single phase development, and in which case there wouldn't be an uplift provision, but I'll just get Jeff to confirm that.
We've obviously engaged with the housing team on this one because it's important if we can deliver affordable housing to make sure we secure it. I think in this case, it was so far sort of beyond being viable to deliver affordable housing that the housing team said we don't really need the uplift because the likelihood of getting it is so small anyway. So the housing team have been involved and they said we don't need the uplift in this time. And as said, it's a single phase development. So we have to justify we're asking for uplifts on single phase developments anyway. So yeah. It's been explored, the question's been asked, and we've got to come to a view on that. That's why.
No, thank you. Thank you for clarifying it. Thank you.
Councillor Hankins.
Mr. Chairman, the point has been made that the 5 questions answered by the Parish Council have been answered. I'm not in a position at this point in time to understand whether those questions have been answered. What were the 5 questions? They seem to be quite important to the Parish Council. So if you could please inform me of those 5 questions and how they've been answered, I would appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
If I could ask Mr. Williams to respond, please.
So thankfully, I have them open on my screen. So just to run through them. So question 1 relates to, I'll just give you the topics, nutrient neutrality, which is covered in the report, and Mr. Barrow has already commented on that. Question 2 relates, I summarise, to the potential reuse of the site for health-related purposes, which is covered in the report. Question 3 relates to cars and buses, which is also there. 4 is about the interrelationship with the local plan, which, to be perfectly honest, I think is the one that is debatable as to how relevant it is in this committee circumstance at this point. And question 5 related to affordable housing and actually chimes in with the question that Councillor Toy has just asked. So those were the questions, and short-ish answers, and pointing out that the issues are covered in the report were provided on Friday. By short-ish, I'm talking about somewhere between 2 and 4 lines per question.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just looking at the application and I thought you said there's 27 car parking spaces when you talked up on the report, but on the application it mentions 52 car parking spaces. Can I have clarification on that, please? 32, sorry. 32, yeah, but if you look on the 20th of December 21, the application form talks about 52 car parking spaces.
It may be the case that the application form wasn't updated to reflect that revised figure, but it is 32 spaces proposed, inclusive of 4 accessible spaces and 6 EV spaces.
Thank you. And I'm really against kicking things into the long grass. That's not normally my thought process, but I'm listening to the members over there, and this time delay from November to Friday for answering questions doesn't feel fair, especially if we're now going to look at changing protocol. So if we're looking at changing protocol, I feel we should, well, if the protocol does get changed, that should almost be applied to what we're talking about now. I think, yeah, thank you.
Officer Williams will respond.
Just on that last point, if I may. So I think there are 2 different issues here. So one is around how do we notify people that something is on an agenda, or whether we do notify people. We can probably have that debate separately at some point, but the agenda were published last Wednesday. That's the point where it is definitely the case that something is on the agenda rather than not on the agenda. And in this instance, it is without doubt that the ward councillors and the parish council were aware it was on the agenda pretty much pronto thereafter. So that's issue 1. To be honest, that's as per normal. The second issue, which I've apologised for, is the fact questions weren't answered that had come forward separately. So they are 2 separate things. One, we followed the norm and the procedure in place. The second, to be honest, we don't get many examples of questions such as this in the first instance, but we should have, there isn't a procedure, but we should have provided a better service than we did. So it's 2 slightly separate things, and that's the observation on both.
I'm sure your apology was appreciated, but should time not be given for full discussion for parish councils?
Well, ultimately, that's your decision as to what you think full discussion is. The answers have been provided. The issues are in the report, as are the parish council's concerns. What view you come to as a committee is for you. I think, all 3 answers are viable in this instance.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
As someone, well, we're all heavily involved in parish council one way or another. I've always been the firm believer of you're not what you are, you're what people think you are. And I'm getting a distinct impression, I'm a newbie here, but I'm getting the impression here that it feels rushed. It feels that parish councillors who are normally locals know the area better than anybody that doesn't live there, haven't really, for whatever reason, had the opportunity to put that view across. As a parish council chairman, I know I would take umbrance to that. So I'm not comfortable whether we have the information or not. I don't believe it involves and includes the necessary, what I view as a necessary local information from people that actually live there. So I'm not, I'm the last person on the planet that will kick a can down the road. I don't think this feels right for me.
Can I just observe briefly, this application has been with us for more than 2 years in that guise, so it's not one that has been dealt with what you might call speedily, and the parish council have commented, as per page 36 of the report, on 3 occasions, so their stated formal position is in the report. I take the point that we could have provided some answers to some questions. I apologise for that, but I don't think this is a case of getting to a, let's just call it, overly rushed decision.
Thank you. Also refer to page 36. The parish council have objected and commented on 3 different occasions, up to and including April last year. And it's taken considerable time since then, almost a year for the application to get to us. I certainly accept that the communications may not have been as good as they might have, but that is not something that really we should be deciding on in this committee. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly have got some sympathy with the parish and the councillors that have spoken. However, looking at this application from the comfort of my armchair, I didn't see it as any different to any other application that we get before us. The information that the officers put together for us to make decisions about these is all in front of us, and I do think that it is possible for us to make a decision here today. It is a difficult one, I know, but there we are. Going on to some detail, I noticed that on page 42, number 6, amenity, separation of distances, there's a point on the first paragraph on the next page that mutual effects are largely mitigated by fences to be installed to the rear of the units, which can be secured via condition. I don't see them on the condition, so I wonder if we could add that.
Yeah, we could obviously certainly add conditions. If apologies if that was missed off the conditions list, but that certainly would have been picked up when we did the review. But yeah, happy to add a condition on fencing or boundary details. Satisfied with that, Councillor Fisher? Thank you. Is there any? You had your say, Marty, I'm afraid. Is there any other member of the committee wish to speak? Councillor Kim Toy.
Sorry, I just want to try and make a comment, and I'll try and be as clear as I can. It's disappointing that there isn't any affordable housing, because I guess that this has the potential to provide accommodation for local people. And the dwellings are quite small, and I've just got alarm bells ringing, and I know we can't predict people's intentions, but would it encourage those people purchases that intend to use it as holiday accommodation? flats being only 1 or 2 bedrooms. That sort of gives me a little bit of a twitch. And also, how long's the hospital been closed? I don't remember seeing anything how long that's been closed.
Thank you. So I would share your concerns about holiday lets. I suspect the events of yesterday may have changed people's attitudes to the viability of first of all holiday lets, which I have to say is potentially a good thing. In terms of the other matter, do you wish to comment?
If you look, you've got 2 bullet points on the top of page 40 of the report, and then the following paragraph, it says that Milestone Hospital was closed in February 2021. That was the date when it closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other question that raises for me is there any likelihood that the health services would seek to continue to use that site for mental health purposes? At the moment, I can't see one, but I think that is an issue which concerns us generally in terms of the very poor provision of mental health services in the area, and is clearly a concern for local members and the parish. Could you comment on that, one of you, please?
I mean, it's hard really for the local planning authority to comment on service provision by another authority. Obviously, we're not the health authority. We don't have control over that, their particular provision. That's obviously massive for the NHS and others. Obviously, from a planning perspective, it's about us making sure we're convinced that if an alternative use is proposed, that they have gone through the process of actively marketing it for the period that's required in the policy. So in this case, it's a 12-month marketing period. We need to think about, are there any other equivalent facilities in the area? We said in the report there are no equivalent facilities in the area. It's quite a unique facility. But it really hinges on, have we adequately marketed the site for more than 12 months? So now conclusion of officers is, no, it hasn't been adequately marketed for 12 months. And that's why we're saying it weighs against the decision to approve. But then you have to weigh that against other material considerations and the fact that it complies with other elements of policy. So you're making that balance. You're saying, okay, on the one hand, they haven't properly marketed. What are the other issues that weigh in favour that would justify approval? And in this case, we've cited the 5-year land supply position as being the thing that would tip against that non-marketing or incorrect marketing of the property.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Mr. Lyon, did you say it wasn't marketed properly?
Yeah, our policy talks about requiring 12 months of continuous marketing. So the information I have, it wasn't marketed for 12 months. It was for a 3-month period.
For a 3-month period? Right. Okay. Because the loss of facility, and also I'm assuming quite a big loss of jobs as well. I don't know how many people would work at a facility like this, but there's going to be quite a big loss of jobs in the area as well.
I don't have information about the number of jobs that were lost at the facility. I don't know if anything was provided in the application, but we don't have that information. Satisfied with that response?
Not overly, thank you.
Okay. Councillor MacDonald.
According to the newspaper article, it was 37.
Could you repeat that, please?
I've read the newspaper article, it was 37 jobs.
37. Thank you. Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've listened to the debate and I've also considered the questions. Now we know what the questions were and the answers given. But I've also considered what decision would I make with what's in front of me? And if the parish council debated it and they came back in the same position as in objecting, would it make a difference? Would we still have the same recommendation? Would I come to the same conclusion? And if they came back and they changed because the answer to those questions, they were supporting it, would it make any difference? And actually it wouldn't. So I'm proposing acceptance of the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Varley. Yeah, that's okay. Councillor Mancini-Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to jump in, but I don't believe that the question that Councillor Kim Toy was answered. The question I believe you asked was the renting out of these properties. Is this a condition we'd like to put on the application? Because if I was living there, I don't think I'd be too thrilled if, and I take your comments about the Chancellor's speech yesterday, but if you were to live there and then all of a sudden you've got a load of people holidaying there, I'm not sure if we could vote on that being a condition of the application.
I'm not aware that we can impose such restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, we're aware of neighbourhood plans in our district where they have required a primary home type condition. Now that's obviously covers those neighbourhood plan areas, but we don't have a development or core strategy policy, the similar sort of wording that would apply to the whole of the district. So if you were to apply for that and the applicant were disagreeable to that condition being applied, then they could appeal that condition and we would have to articulate to an inspector why we were imposing that condition. And without the policy basis for requiring it, it would be hard to see what lines of argument we would put to an inspector as to why we're on this case applying it, whereas on others recently we haven't done that. So I think we need to be careful that we don't rewrite policy via the development committee, because that can set a dangerous precedent in terms of consistency. So I do note the concerns, but I think at this moment in time it would be hard for us to justify why we would be imposing that condition.
Thank you for scaring me with your response.
Please. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we have. Oh yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Vickers. Okay, Councillor Hankin first.
It is clear from what's been said today that neither the parish council of Catfield and the members of that area are not convinced by the argument. I would feel more comfortable if there was a deferral in order to make a better exploration and a better decision in terms of the parish council and the development committee. I'm not convinced, and it stands at the moment that enough has been made to convince them of this individual application.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers.
I absolutely support what Councillor Hankins says, and I'm not an expert on the rules and running order of this committee, but I'm a bit disappointed that we were given time for debate and then I was waiting for your signal to make proposals. And I think there's clearly some people who would like to see a deferral. I think we should vote on that first, and then if that vote falls,
I
then
agree.
go ahead on whether we approve.
There's a problem because the first proposal was withdrawn. There's a second proposal for deferral that wasn't withdrawn.
That proposal was also withdrawn by
Was it?
Councillor Vickers at the same point.
Okay.
When able
I
to
withdrew on
debate.
the understanding that the chairman would signal when it was time for proposals to come. And I think a fair process should be a vote on deferral, as there's clearly an appetite for deferral here. And if that falls, then we go ahead to vote on the actual merits of the case. I'm very, very concerned that the local community have not been properly consulted. The two district councillors say they only got the questions on Friday. They haven't had time. I don't know what these questions were or the answers to them, but they should at least have an opportunity to put them to the parish council and see if that comes up with a different response. I'm not commenting on the merits of the case. Thank you.
So can I chip in? So I'm going to say we are where we are. So it's up to Councillor John Toy as to whether he wants the vote as he suggested put, or whether he's happy to do it the other way round. But if we continue and take the proposition as put, then effectively, if you vote for that, you're voting to determine the application positively today. If you vote against that, it is almost certain, if against were to win, that we'll move on to a vote on deferral at that point, because somebody would publish that. So it's up to Councillor Toy in terms of process, because we are where we are in that, guys. But if we continue with that one, then for means approve, and against almost certainly means we'll then have a vote on deferral, which clearly those that are advocating against would then vote for deferral, because that's how you've all debated it. So you'll get to the same position either way, but arguably we are where we are. So could I ask Councillor Toy whether he wishes to put his proposal to the vote? But if it is, it would be on that basis.
Yeah, so I agree what you say. I think we will end up at the same place either way. So again, I'm happy to work with the committee and through the chairman as to which way we do it. I think we will get to the same answer, because as you say, if people feel deferral is the right way, they can vote against the proposal. So hopefully Councillor Vickers.
So are you then saying you will withdraw your proposal to enable proposal for deferral?
I think we're going to end up exactly the same place. So yeah, I'm happy to
It's
do
probably
that.
easier if we just go straight to a vote on deferral.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine with that, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Vickers.
Yeah, I don't agree with what Mr. Williams said, because there may be people sitting here who want deferral, but who would actually vote for the this planning application if all things being equal. So thank you very much to Councillor Toy for giving way, and I propose deferral.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Hankins. Okay, so we can further debate a deferral. I'm taking it is on the grounds that by deferring, we give the local members and the parish council a further opportunity to respond. Is that acceptable? Okay, if we vote to defer, I would hope that it can be brought back to a meeting as soon as possible, though probably not the next one, given the potential agenda there. Maybe it's like another 4 weeks. We have to use another. But we'll see where the deferral vote goes. Lauren.
Thank you, Chairman. So just confirm it's for deferral. Councillor Beattie,
Not very happy about it all.
Councillor Fisher,
Abstain.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, Councillor Hankins, Councillor Heinrich,
Against.
Councillor Holliday, Councillor MacDonald,
Abstain.
Councillor Mancini Boyle,
For.
Councillor Neverway, Councillor Patterson,
For.
Councillor John Toy,
Against.
Councillor Kim Toy,
For.
Councillor Varley, and Councillor Vickers.
For.
So that is 9 votes for deferral, 3 votes against, and 2 abstentions. The vote for deferral is carried.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring it forward as soon as possible, and I would ask that officers and the local members in the parish liaise carefully so that all these outstanding matters can be discussed and the parish can further respond. Thank you. Right. Moving on then to item 10. The development manager performance update. Brian. Right, okay, page 53 of your agenda, we just set out, as we do each month, the performance figures. So we've got the table there showing the speed of decisions for majors and non-majors, and for the month of January. So we didn't actually issue any major decisions, but we issued 99 non-major decisions, and we had 96% of those within time.
So the 24-month average, which is what the government assess our performance against, for majors, we are still at 100% of applications determined on time within that 24-month period. And for non-majors, we are at 95% across that. So yeah, but the performance is being maintained for the service. In terms of quality of decisions, so that's the number of appeals that are allowed against the total number of decisions made. For majors, we haven't had any appeals against us on that, so we're down at 0%. And for non-majors, we're at 0.45% for non-majors for that 24-month period. So again, that's the national target is 10% and our own target is 5%. So we're well within that target. Next month's figures, without spoiling next month's figures, we've had a couple of appeals that have been allowed, but even accounting for those in February, that would only take us up another sort of 0.09% of a percent. So it's not a huge hit, but it's not necessarily going in necessarily in the right direction, but we'll come on more to that next month. In terms of numbers of applications, we have had quite a lot of cases come into us. So we've had 266 applications validated. So yeah, plenty of work coming our way, and application numbers are continuing to be reasonably high, although they did come down just before Christmas. So yeah, very busy.
Thank you. S106, Fiona.
I expect a couple to come off the list next month.
Again, I'm happy to take any sort of questions from members on this. We have had quite a number of decisions, as you can see on page 61. So some have been allowed, some dismissed. So yeah, so we actually have had some decisions from the inspector, which is always a good thing. Whether we like the outcome of those decisions, I'll leave that to you. But yeah, so there's still a lot of outstanding cases, and we've had a number of new appeals come in as well. So fairly busy on the appeals front. It's keeping our officers fairly busy as well. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last one on page 61, Wells enforcement 61. The pizza van it was in question has been moved off that site for possibly 2 years now, and eventually the appeal has been quashed. It's interesting that it's taken all this time, considering the van has not physically been in that situation, as in fact in the next one up, which is 2149, which is still awaiting the appeal. Oh no, and that's appeal is dismissed as well, so that's really good. But it's interesting that it's taken all this time for those decisions to come down. And I was trying to explain that to Wells Town Council on Monday night, who believe that it's completely within our gift as to when this is all sorted out. And I just wondered, as it has taken so long, whether there's a need to have the date when the enforcement notice was actually served against these things, so we can just see how long they've been sitting there.
Yeah, excuse me. That issue was raised at last month's committee, and we are acting on getting those changes made. So it's, as I said last month, it's an easy thing to say, but often harder to deliver. But we are delivering on that. So I expect by the April agenda, you will have a list of cases with the appropriate date for when the appeal was registered, which will make it easier in viewing the cases. In terms of an observation, I mean, you're quite right. I mean, it was the appeal at Wells, the bottom item, we say it's taken so long that things have changed. We've almost sort of self-resolved itself. I mean, we as a planning authority are held to quite high standards in terms of our performance of determination of applications. The inspectorate are also apparently held to a similar standard, but obviously they're not delivering in the same way that we are supposed to be delivering. There's new consultations going out for increasing the speed at which certain applications are decided. So the pressure that we will be under the planning authority to determine quickly will increase. The likelihood is that will increase the workload on the inspectorate. So it'd be interesting how they respond in terms of whether they can deliver decisions as quickly as we've been delivering them in the planning application stage.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for that. I thought that I remembered something about the dates being mentioned before, but I did wonder if I just dreamt about it as I usually do about all these things overnight.
Councillor Kim tonight.
Just a question, and perhaps other newish councillors won't know. Can you explain to me what's the difference between dismissed and quashed?
Might defer to Fiona, who's a legal expert. She'll probably have to.
If appeal is dismissed, it's been determined, but in fact, the inspectorate has sided with the person making the appeal. They've determined that in fact there's justification for the appeal, and that usually permission can therefore be granted against the refusal of the local planning authority. The enforcement notice was quashed, meaning that it was considered, the wording of it was considered invalid. I did look at that, and it was quite harsh. It's a harsh decision on the local planning authority, because there wasn't a lawful use of the car park area, I think, when this appeal was made against the enforcement notice. But I think then the car park did have receive a lawful use. So in fact, the inspectorate thought that the improper use shouldn't just have been of the sighting of the pizza vehicle. It should have been it's gone from a car park to a mixed use for car parking and the sighting of a pizza van, and therefore they took quite a harsh interpretation of the wording of that enforcement notice and said that the notice in itself couldn't stand, so that the whole the notice was effectively considered invalid. It was quite a harsh decision by the inspectorate on that.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Bay.
Just wondered with the whole application for the mast, whether anything's come forward from that yet?
I've not heard anything, but we can always, I'll find out from the officer and give a chase in terms of what the timeframes are.
Thank
As I
you.
say, it's not always, I mean, they have timetables that they work to, but they're not necessarily rigid, and they stretch depending on whether they have resource to deal with particular cases. So some go really quickly and others take forever, as we've seen at Wells. But I'll get an answer to your question for you. Okay, if nobody else wishes to ask any questions, there being no private business, meeting closed at 10:38. Thank you.